All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back for another Chief Architect Network Live. We are excited to be here again and have a lot of fun in terms of a topic today that we're looking forward to sharing with you. And excited that these events can be live events because they give you a chance to ask questions to our guests in real time. And if you're a Chief Architect Network member, to actually log in and join us on stage later in the show. So thanks for being here today. Maybe we should start with introductions. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Chambers, Chief Architect at Chick-fil-A and co-founder of the Chief Architect Network. And joining me as always, is Grant. Hey, Grant, what's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, and I love these events. They're always exciting and a great way to kind of share ideas and get a little live interactivity from our friends on LinkedIn. My name's Grant Ecker. I'm the founder of the Chief Architect Network and the Chief Architect at Ecolab, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you guys. Let's talk a little bit about what this is if this is your first time joining us. So the Chief Architect Network is maximizing the value of architecture practices through our network that widens perspectives, shares best practices, grows us as leaders, develops our talent, and drives outcome. We're a community-led, vendor-neutral, no-cost, pure network of chief architects. So if that's you, go to chiefarchitectnetwork.com and join us. So very excited about that, and also excited to introduce two of our members with you as we kind of step into today's conversation. So let's bring them into the conversation and pivot over to a little bit of a slightly different view.
Yeah, so we're excited to have Ram and Srikanth with us today. So a quick plug, these are two guys who are peered together through our Chief Architect Network peer program. And so they've gotten to spend some time this year talking and actually had a topic they wanted to share about on the show today, which is amazing. So I absolutely love that. And gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. You want to take a second and introduce yourselves and we'll jump into the topic.
Yep. Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ram Marupudi. I'm the Vice President of Architecture, leading the enterprise architecture practice at O'Reilly Auto Parts in Springfield, Missouri. Srikanth?
Hey, thank you, Grant and Brian, for the opportunity. Yeah, Srikanth Edula. I'm leading the enterprise architecture team. I'm head of enterprise architecture for a healthcare company based out of Toronto, PointClickCare. Excited. I've been paid with Ram as part of the Chief Architect Network, and we had opportunity to collaborate, meet and collaborate multiple times over the past few months.
Amazing. Well, before we pull up the topic, I want to explain that for a bit. So Brian, who's right up there, created this idea of, hey, we're all peers in this network. Wouldn't it be great if we could find members with similar focus, similar size teams, et cetera, as opposed to having to pay for someone externally to kind of bounce ideas off of? We can source that right in this network. So that's exactly what Srikanth and Ram have experienced, and they've found a bit of a partnership together. So when we were saying, hey, who wants to do the next Can Live? They said, well, why not do it together? We thought that was a really great idea. So we'll bring our topic into the picture here and dive in.
Yeah, so let's jump in and get started. So today we're going to hear about building a future-ready tech landscape. So we'll let you guys take it away and start telling us a little bit about what that means and why it's important.
Awesome. So good afternoon, everyone again. Grant and Brian, thank you so much for the opportunity. So both Srikanth and I registered with the Chief Architect Network peer program, as Grant mentioned about. So this is not about definitely mentoring. I'm in a no shape position form to mentor Srikanth and vice versa. This is learning from each other. This is collaborating with each other, learning what are the challenges, what are the common priorities, what are the common pain points, what are the priorities that are demanding at work. So that cadence really helped us to strike our relationship and also got connected us on a regular cadence. So we meet every week religiously, and we have a structured framework, like, what are the problems, what are the challenges, where we need to brainstorm. And together we are here to share our thoughts, our experiences about shaping up a enterprise technology viewpoint with a target state, future ready target state. how we can do that, what are the common challenges, what are the common pain points, and what are our experiences, and have a rich dialogue and have a rich conversation with the peer community, with the peer chief architects here. So I work at O'Reilly Auto Parts, and we are here. This is my second year with O'Reilly, and one of the main goal that I have set by my CIO is shape up a strategy, shape up an IT strategy, and also shape up a framework and approach to drive a multi-year roadmap at an enterprise technology footprint level, not just at a portfolio, but at a enterprise, but at an enterprise viewpoint. So why this matters? It is extremely important. It's not that we do not have any roadmaps. It's not that we do not have any portfolio related works. We do have all that. But why an enterprise technology landscape is so important, present that, as they can say, that single view of glass to the executives, so that it can help laser focus on where the investments are, what are the underperforming platforms or underperforming areas from a technology landscape at an enterprise level, and then also identify where are the investments going and discover where the shadow ITs are. So this can help us address or unmask the technical debt that we have, or the security exposure, or double click into the security exposure at any portfolios, or even missed opportunities if we are not modernizing in a timely fashion. So that's the reason behind why we want to have a good conversation about the importance of why an enterprise view of technology landscape in larger enterprises is so important. So there are a few strategic focus areas that we want to delve deeper into, and don't consider this as like a proven framework or a proven statement of operational procedure guide. Nothing like that. This is again from our experiences, and I have done this a couple of times in my past companies. So this is just sharing my experiences and wanted to have a rich dialogue. Most of the in the enterprise architecture practice, most of the seasoned architects or seasoned leaders also call that as platform application and platform rationalization or optimization, those kind of things based on which tool or which framework that we leverage. But the whole purpose of that is to categorize by traditional or classic business capability or business function, and then map the technologies or applications with each business function, and then determine the cost, determine the fitness. That's one thing that we want to, Srikanth and I brainstormed a lot. How to evaluate the technology fitness, how to evaluate the functional fitness, so that it's not about someone's opinion or someone's experience, but there is a very objective criteria on, even if it is a federated ownership, but everyone goes through that objective criteria to determine the technical fitness, whether it can be using an architectural assessment, or it can be a security posture analysis, or it can be on the scalability, or it can be on the reliability of that particular critical application. So determining an objective or establishing a objective criteria for technical fitness can be extremely vital or important for this activity. And same thing from the determining the functional fitness as well. Functional fitness, we want to collaborate or gain the trust and confidence by engaging the functional SMEs or functional leaders into the conversation on developing that objective criteria to determine the functional fitness. So that, is this a good process fit? Is it a good usability? Is it a good completeness of the overall business function in that particular portfolio? And then bring that data back into determining the heat map, and to ensure that applications or technologies are rationalized accordingly. And then we also discussed, or we also brainstormed about how to track the technology risks year over year. What are some of the KPIs that we want to manage? What are some of the KPIs that we want to track year over year, so that whether it can be a technology risk that Srikanth will go through in detail, or it might be an operational risk, or it might be some third-party dependency risk. And then prioritize those risks and are tracked in some governance framework or governance committees that can be established, and proactively address the technical debt. On year one, what are the risks that we want to address, and look at the newer KPIs on year two. And year two, what are the investments that we want to focus on, so on and so forth. And then by doing that, we will be positioned to present a executive road mapping or executive input into developing a 3-year roadmap or multi-year roadmap across the enterprise, or at least even contribute or give inputs in shaping up that multi-year investment across that covers the landscape of business, architecture, security, and mostly partnering with the solution delivery leaders. So by doing that, I think Gartner calls it as time quadrant based on this technical and functional fit. So that can be a viewpoint. And some of the other tools that are out there in the market, like RDoc or LeanIX, they have their own viewpoints that can present or at a push of a button automatically multi-year roadmaps. This can help give some input into what to do next or where to invest based on the risk portfolio. And this can also help build the cross-functional collaboration together, just because it is not at all easy to bring in that continued commitment, continued collaboration with those team members or with those portfolios who do not report into the architecture. So it's extremely important to align the consensus. It's extremely important to secure the commitment and trust on the approach, trust on the process, and trust on the framework, so that this data can be used or this process can be leveraged across the enterprise in a repeated fashion, like in every year, at least every year. I remember in one of the prior similar conversations, Grant mentioning, it has to be done at least once a year, if not twice or thrice. So this discipline to drive the modernization that is very objective in nature helps us prioritize the technology investments and help align the leadership on where to drive the modernization can be a beautiful value that architecture leadership can deliver to the company. And now I want to pass on the baton to Srikanth, who would drive a little bit deeper into how to build the muscle. What are some of the future target state capabilities, or what are some of the next generation technologies or concepts that we need to zero in on? Srikanth, please take.
Before we go there, we've got a question from our audience. This is Jason Taylor, who's a member out in New York. His question is, what is your advice for folks who struggle with getting a strong business strategy to use to develop the aligned IT strategy? What do you guys think?
I think, Jason, that's a very, very important or candid question. One thing I would advise from my experience is, as leaders of enterprise architecture, we do not want to position as we are advising or shaping up the business strategy per se. We would have the corporate company enterprise strategy, take that strategy into and decompose that strategy into how to align that enterprise strategy that is set by the executives and business leaders into how you can integrate that into the IT strategy. But if the position is, as enterprise architects, we want to shape up the business strategy, at least we should be in a position to have much more widen the compass, much more than the framework of the technology landscape across the industry threats, across the each and every business model. I think that becomes a wider compass or a wider arena of network. So I wouldn't dwell much into inputting into the business strategy, but take that business strategy and then decompose that into how to integrate that into the IT strategy would be my first input. Srikanth, you want to add on?
Yes. I wanted to talk about it as well in my conversation. Yes, trying to understand what the business wants in terms of the current capabilities, where they are with the current capabilities, and what new capabilities they want to have, and as well which capabilities they want to mature. As long as we have that conversation with business and get the data, we in turn have to turn around inside IT and see how to realize their capabilities or how to realize the maturity which the business is asking IT of. I think that is how I would kind of create that future state and show them via smaller chunks of improvements or roadmaps to meet what the business wants end of the year or in their multi-year programs.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep going. So
Yes. So yeah, thank you, Ram, for the first part of the conversation and talking about our collaboration. Yeah, both when Ram and I were paid, both of us were in a very similar journey in our organizations. We both were trying to set up the enterprise architecture practice and function and grow the maturity of the practice in our respective organizations. So we were kind of bouncing off, hey, what are your challenges with your IT and business leadership, and what are your challenges with your peers, and as well people who are reporting to you, the other architects and other team members. And that's how we kind of talked about few things. One which Ram has talked about is app rationalization. I believe that is its own session which we can come back and talk about all the lessons learned in our app rationalization journeys, and how best we can, like, how can we refine or how can we mature that app rationalization journey and practice as part of enterprise architecture. Ram has definitely given some good insights there. And as well, the capturing, we were talking about our APM tools, which tools we both leverage in our practices, and without naming or going into any tool of choice, what we both have discussed is the importance of capturing the current state. So when I say current state, it can be, hey, what are our applications? Where is the catalog of our applications? Do we have a good handle of them? Then once you know where your applications and where your investments are, what capabilities do those applications meet? Talking about the earlier question, trying to answer that. These are our applications, X number of applications in our portfolio, may be owned by these Y number of different teams, organizations inside of the company. What are these applications doing to our business? What capabilities are these applications meeting? Then in current state, the other part of it, infrastructure and the hardware infrastructure side of it. Okay, how much are we paying for these applications if they are SaaS applications? If they are internally hosted applications, how much is it costing us? What is their ROI? So, and also we also have tried to document the interactions between these applications, the technology architecture itself, the application and technology architecture, where what type of data is being transferred from application A to B, B to C and D and all that. So that gives that full holistic picture of our current state architecture and current state views on where IT is spending their current investments. So that when we go back to the business, usually it's an yearly cycle, most of the companies, where you go for the funding for next year, where you collaborate with the business saying, this is what we are doing in IT today. These are the applications, this is our inventory, these are the capabilities. Now, please help us give the direction on where do you want to go from here. Like, do you want to mature the capabilities? Do you want to add new capabilities because we are competing, our competition is catching up, blah, blah, all that. Once we have a fair discussion and understanding from the business, we turn around and kind of create those roadmaps, create those target state architecture, target state views, saying, hey, this is our 2 to 3 year plan, let's say for HR portfolio as an example. So this is where HR is today, current state, this is where we want to go. and what is the roadmap for us to go from point today to tomorrow point B or C will be. Maybe I prefer like a 6 months roadmap. Like how do you break down your long-term architecture view into multiple chunks of smaller roadmaps, and most importantly, do you have an opportunity, or are you disciplined enough to go back and update those roadmaps? Because things change. What we planned 6 months ago may not hold good still, because the competition has caught up, or we are already good in something, we want to pivot our direction. So keep on updating the roadmaps, maybe quarterly or twice a year, will be helpful for the business to know and understand where we are today and what is IT delivering them in the near future, near to medium term future. So that's one part of the discussion on how we can help business realize their goals. In terms of the shifting topics, in terms of technology, so understanding what are the pivotal technological things which, like the things which are in the horizon. Like we all know AI and ML are the latest ones in the horizon. We all know the like AI, generative AI is pretty much used across multiple industries, in healthcare where I work, in finance, and in data analytics. Things which can, like in programming, things which can be done by a human earlier, the machine is able to do it much faster. So how do we leverage that capability as an example so that we can set ourselves apart as an organization from our competition? So that's one way of, one thread of discussion, one facet of conversations we can have with our business. There are so many other technologies on the horizon. Internet of Things, we don't talk much, but it's pretty much everywhere. I was reading up something the other day. Average US home has almost 19 IoT devices in 2023. That's the count they came up with in their research. And now in 25, I'm sure it is close to 20 plus IoT devices. So it's not just the personal usage. We have IoTs everywhere in healthcare, where they're monitoring patients' data and transmitting to the server for it to be run analysis automatically. We have IoTs for our smart cities. Like every light I go through where I live in Dallas, you have these IoTs capturing. I can see that IoTs capturing all the cars' data, the movement of traffic, blah, blah, all that. We have it in supply chain, like I worked in airlines. Every bag used, there was a time when we were thinking of having an IoT for every bag passing through the system, as an example. So all these different technologies, blockchain technologies, these IoTs, augmented reality and virtual reality. Some industries have already adopted that in manufacturing, for training, in healthcare, blah, blah, again. So showcasing all these different technologies to the business and saying that, hey, we have all these in our portfolio in coming up in the technology horizon. Now to help us shape the strategy on how we can leverage all this to set ourselves apart from the competition, or to definitely leap ahead from where we are right now, is a type of discussion, is something which I and Ram, we were thinking strongly enables us to partner with business and build those future-ready technology landscapes. The last point we were always talking about is the people skills. Yeah. We talk of technology all day. We talk of future state. We talk of AI, ML, blah, blah, all that. But where is the people? Where is the skill set coming up in here? One of the examples, as an architect in my earlier days, as a solution architect, I always used to, whenever I design it and whenever I put in an architectural design, I always used to go to the development team and show them this and say, hey, this is a design from the architecture team are coming up with. Do you think you can implement this? Like how implementable this design is? Do you have the needed skill set? Maybe I'm designing an architecture to have Java as your programming language, but maybe your team is all staffed for .NET. Then blah, no, that doesn't work. So taking that fast forward, even now, when we are trying to do these future-ready landscapes, how is our workforce tasked? How is the skill set for our workforce? And these are the conversations we have with both business and IT leadership, and especially more on the IT side to CIO and CTOs, saying, hey, we have this skill set in our enterprise, but if we want to adopt new technologies, new solutions, we have to upskill. What is the plan as a leader for us to upskill our current force? And as we are going through this journey, how does change management happen? What are the soft skills, not just the hard skills, technology skills? How do we inculcate the positive culture, supporting workplace environments? Because whatever somebody was good at something, we are asking them to reskill to a newer skill set. So how will we enable those conversations as part of the leadership meetings? So that is another really important facet we were thinking of when we were trying to come up with a plan on creating these future-ready technology landscapes.
That's great.
Those are the things I wanted to talk and share in our conversations with Ram and myself over the past few months.
Nice job, gentlemen. We appreciate that. So we've got some questions for you from the audience. So we'll go through some of those and hear your thoughts. So the first one was around the idea that app rationalization, it takes time. Replatforming, can take even more time, and sometimes it can be hard to quantify those benefits. So what have you guys done, or what are you thinking in terms of how to get the business on board with you guys on going down that road and on that journey with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will take a stab at it, and Srikanth, I will let you add.
Yeah,
that is a very common concern. When economy gets tighter, that concern even is a bigger challenge, and there is no easy answer. So sometimes the most important thing is tied to the business outcome or the business problem that you're trying to solve. Rationalization effort is to solve a particular problem. The particular problem in your company might be very slow. IT appears to be very slow. Or what is that number one problem that comes to the surface, and use rationalization as a vehicle to tag to that problem. Let's say if the business leaders or the executives think that faster time to market is what I'm expecting from IT, or improved customer experience, or reduced risk exposure, whatever is the common theme that you hear across the shared leadership of your company, tied to that problem without trying to find another problem or trying to build a business case, but try to that main anchor, and then build a story around how this rationalization effort can solve that problem. So that will automatically gain not only the support and sponsorship, but also alignment across IT and business leaders.
I like that. We're going to go through a couple more. The next one I have up here is from Deepak. In large corporations, we generally have a problem of fragmented data and siloed business units and legacy systems. How does enterprise architecture help to solve this problem? Srikanth, maybe go to you for this.
Yeah. I think a good question, Deepak. Thank you. Yeah, very valid scenario and very valid questions to pretty much everybody in the conversation here. Because all the companies which we're working are all, when I say legacy companies which have been founded years ago, where you have a lot of data built up in individual silos, in individual organizations inside the company. One way I have done, which is also I'm currently pursuing as part of my current state architecture, modeling the current state architecture journey, is I was talking about earlier when I was trying to model and catalog the current applications. I'm also using that opportunity to document the system of records. This is the application we have, let's say in HR. What are the attributes or what are the objects this application holds as a system of record? So during those conversations, as I'm trying to catalog, usually we find those answers. So then the data and the system of records, if they are tied to the application, then the next logical question is, where are you sending this information out? Are you getting updated information from somebody? Are you making an update? Or do you own this? Or are you sending it somewhere for other people to, like a PubSub model and stuff like that? So that would be the level one, or the first phase of me trying to document where the data is from the application SMEs, and then go through the different layers to figuring out where this data is propagated. Always, usually the data team will be helpful. The CDO team always is helpful, at least for me in my current role, where they have a good catalog of their data, but it's in their silo. So it's my job to get it out of the silo and share it across the enterprise, especially with the business folks, so that they understand where the data is residing and how the data is sent or received across these different departments.
I think I would like to also add and say fragmentation and silos exist, and that's exactly where EA can shine. That's exactly enterprise architecture can prove its value.
Yep.
I'd love to invite Jason to join us on the stage here. He's a member from New York wearing a very cool jacket. Jason, what have you thought of the conversation so far? And do you have a question?
No, this is fabulous, and I think these are the problems that real people experience in the field, and I think Srikanth and Ram, you gave great advice. I know in my history, finding either the pain points that an organization has felt recently or currently, and or maybe strategic objectives they're not able to achieve. If you can connect those dots to EA, then I think it really comes. The business starts to understand the value and the approach. And I'll give you a great example of tech debt. Most people will say, "Hey, I know I have tech debt out there. It's sort of like maintenance on your house. You know it's out there, but you don't get money for it because it's just sort of there." And I had a situation where I had a $250 million product line that was on an 8-year-old out of support version of a certain software, and that's a very different conversation with senior leadership right now. Tech debt becomes a potential. You do the math: $250 million a day if that thing goes down, and so I think that business value connection is the key to success when you're trying to talk about value of enterprise architecture, or some of these things that are challenging for folks to wrap their heads around because they're bigger than a breadbasket or more complex than a simple product idea.
Yeah, Jason, great comment. And I would say debt visibility is a great outcome. We may not be able to solve eliminating the debt, but if we can put together the debt visibility and emphasize the importance of the debt justification through some impact modeling, that can automatically contribute or spearhead a good conversation around how we can remediate over years, or embed that into various funding projects or various initiatives. That's great thoughts.
Awesome. Thanks for dialing in, Jason. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Great conversation.
We had a question come in from Daniel. What are some of the methods or deliverables you use to help non-architect stakeholders recognize the value of architecture? Who wants to take it?
I can take it.
Jump right in.
Yep. It's just a coincidence. I was thinking about it just today morning. I had a conversation with one of my stakeholders. I was not part of just to give a quick example or what has happened. I was not part of one of the meetings last week between business and IT, and the business came back and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing? We are not understanding. Can you kind of dummy down the architecture and show us what you're doing?" Kind of a conversation. I was not part, so I could not. And I was not part of that conversation, so I could not answer. Coming back to this question, I was thinking about it yesterday morning. The best way for us to show the value of architecture to non-IT people is to kind of give real-life analogies. Like when people ask me what is enterprise architecture, I would say, hey, imagine us as the city planners. Everybody knows what a city planner does for the city. They figure out the roads, they figure out the drainage, they figure out the building heights, they figure out so many other, like the way the water is coming from the lakes and all that. So giving a nice analogy of what real life people know. Real life people know what architecture is. It's just that they don't know what IT architecture is. They don't know what enterprise architecture is. So kind of helping them understand, we are the people who try to connect multiple dots across the IT landscape, so that if you change one thing on one side of the city, you would want to make sure all the dependencies are documented and known, and also make sure the other side of the city is not getting affected if you change something in here. One side of the road, what happens to the other side of the road, blah, blah, things like that. So that's how I would answer or approach that question of showing other analogies which people are used to outside of IT.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel, great input with that analogy, Srikanth. I would suggest a couple of practical deliverables, because that's your question, right? I would say a simple outcome of an architecture review practice, like architecture review board or something like that. If you can have an executive style briefs highlighting the key decisions, the rationale, the implications, this would definitely help promote non-architects understand how decisions are made and stay engaged in the process, and also clearly help change the overall map. Architecture slows down things, or architecture as a overhead. This communication will help make a shift in the perception, and look at architecture or enterprise architecture as an enabler. So start producing like simple newsletters. Doesn't need to be super fancy, but here are the 4 decisions that we made this quarter. Here is how we made it. Here are the implications. Here are the projects. And then automatically people will start joining forces.
Excellent. I think we've got one more question for you, and then we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up here. So this question is really around rapidly shifting priorities. And I think Srikanth mentioned it earlier, the tech paradigm around us is changing really rapidly. So how are you accommodating that when you think about your roadmap plans, particularly, they may already be active and in flight and you're working on things. How do you deal with all the interruptions and disruptions that may come?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a joke in almost every organization. There will be always a list of projects that will be automatically approved. People call that a CEO list or the board list. Those projects can come from any corner at any point. But the short answer is, there is no question that in fast-moving environments, it's not about locking in the form of a roadmap. Roadmap is all about how to enable informed adaptation and how to continue to follow the architectural guidelines in order to do the prioritization. That does not mean architecture is like a blocker or slowing down the process. It is all about adaptive road mapping. As an example, we can say use governance. Architecture governance is not a bureaucracy, it's an enablement by producing flexibility to newer projects that come or newer demands that pop up from the CEO list. So that, our enterprise architecture leaders and CIO staff, they are here not as gatekeepers, but they are here to provide the feedback loop, and most importantly, pivot whenever it is needed, so that we can shift without losing the focus, without losing the most important objective criteria that was established. Srikanth, you want to
yeah, exactly. Similar to what I was, thank you, Ram. Yeah, earlier to what my point of creating those target state and architect, the 2 to 3 year target state and the roadmaps. This is an opportunity when we revise the roadmaps every quarter or every 2 quarters, accommodating the shift in the business priorities into the roadmaps, and then viewing again into the target state and seeing, okay, if we change these roadmaps in here, how is our target state changing, so that we know where we are today and where we are going with this updated business priorities, and of course the technological new paradigm shifts coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And one use case that I want to bring to the table is, we can be intentional sometimes in creating tech debt. That is all because of the prioritization. That would be a beautiful orchestration of how architecture can be flexible, and we are intentional about creating some tech debt because we want to shift priorities as per the business needs. Yeah.
Got one last question for us before we might go to some lightning round with Brian here, and this is from Mushtaq. By the way, the last question was from Sandesh, also a member of ours here in Chicago. Mushtaq is actually a little bit later in the evening on the other side of the pond, so thanks for staying up with us. How do we handle if we could see jams and redundancies in the capabilities canvas from current state? Convince the business the current capabilities need to be centralized, where there might be a risk of disruption in a business unit. What do you guys think?
I can take a stab at it. Identifying duplicates, it's not at all uncommon. So what I would say is, convince governance through federated models or lead by the business impact. So if our first dialogue shouldn't be let's centralize. Our first dialogue shouldn't be we want to sunset a few technologies or we want to sunset a few applications. That's not, we wouldn't start by that. But our starting approach should be, what is the cost of fragmentation? What is the impact of having multiple systems or technologies that does the same thing in terms of inconsistent decisions if you have multiple reporting tools that produce the same thing, or in terms of duplicated efforts? Then bring those data points into a measurable business action and enable that conversation. But if we would start with I want to centralize, I am EA, then that may not go well for a long time. Yeah.
Jason, I saw you itching to chime in. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I think Ram hit the nail on the head. Part of this is show me the money, right? I mean, if you're a separate line of business and you've been spending money on something, and if you can step back as an enterprise and say, hey, 5 of you guys are all spending money on the same thing, I can deliver that once centrally, and you'll all share a piece of that. You'll spend less, and you can take more of the money that you saved and pump in innovation or more things for the business. I think that's the way to open people's eyes to those things where there might be a little disruption in the early stages, but it'll pay off in the long term for them.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. And sometimes standardization is something leaders may not like it. It may appear like I'm giving up my freedom, I'm giving up my control. So we should position that as risk mitigation and resilience or cost effectiveness that can go a very long way.
This is awesome. So let's wrap up with one really quick question. We'll ask everybody here. Grant and Jason, you get to play too. So Grant, we'll start with you actually, and let everybody else take a second to think about it. But when you think about this area, what's your one parting advice idea that you would give folks who are maybe on this journey or just getting started? What's your one thing, Grant?
Get real clarity and alignment with the business strategy. I mean, that's where a lot of our questions have come in. I think that if you can create that connection between that and your roadmaps, then you're going to be in a good path because people have a clear understanding of the why, and then they can understand the what that you're focusing on. And now we can all dive in together on the how.
That's great. Jason, you want to play as well? You have anything?
Yeah, of course. I would say value, right? Focus on the value that you're creating or providing, and don't lose sight of that. Sometimes as technologists, we can get caught up in a cool new technology like blockchain and not actually anchor on the value of that for the business and the value it provides. So I would always keep that front of mind. And then you're talking the language of the business, and usually magic things happen. Awesome.
Srikanth?
Yep, exactly. ROI, that's my mantra for the last few months in here at my workplace. What is the ROI getting delivered?
Fantastic. And then Ram, how about you?
I would say good architecture or successful architecture always thrives on shared understanding, not just documentation or not just some models. Shared understanding, and through that can be achieved only through engagement, continuous engagement. Once we are successful in establishing a shared understanding, that will unlock a lot of opportunities.
Fantastic. I guess I'll play too. Mine's redundant, but I would just say, in my experience, I found that having like a clear value story is going to win over conceptual accuracy every single time. And as an architect, you love conceptual accuracy. Sometimes you just have to let it go. and tell the story about where the value is instead. So that's been my experience. All right, well, gentlemen, this has been a fantastic time. We really appreciate you joining us and sharing. For all of you out there who took the time to watch, maybe on a spring break week, we really appreciate that. So thank you for joining. And if you are a chief architect and you happen to stumble across this and are wondering what's going on, come check us out at chiefarchitectnetwork.com. Love to have you apply and potentially be right here chatting with us in the future one day. So come check it out. Thanks, everyone, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Nice to meet you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Everybody.